Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Ayşe Süberker. US President Donald Trump has delivered yet another blow to the Palestinians. In complete defiance of international law, the United States has reversed its own decades-old policy and announced that it will no longer consider Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank illegal. The settlements have long been considered a major stumbling block to an Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement, but Washington claims that recognizing them will help resolve the conflict. This view obviously is not shared by the Palestinians as well as governments and right groups worldwide who say settlements in the occupied territories violate international law. The announcement is also the latest in a series of steps taken by the Trump administration that have tipped the balance in the region. In 2017, the White House recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and moved the U.S. embassy there. 1 year later, the U.S. cut its contributions to the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. And in March this year, the U.S. recognized Israeli sovereignty over the occupied Golan Heights. So, what does the latest U.S. announcement mean for the people of Palestine? Is it a green light for more violent takeovers of the Palestinian land and displacement of Palestinian people? And is it the final nail in the coffin for any lingering hopes of a two-state solution? And to answer that, I'm joined by Sami al Arian, who is the director of the Center for Islam and Global Affairs. And joining me from London is Asa Winstanley, who is the associate editor at the electronic Intifada online newspaper. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. Sami, I want to start with you. The U.S. policy change viewing Israeli settlements not illegal is the latest a series of this kind of implementations we've seen in the recent past. Is this the ultimate blow to the efforts of Palestinian statehood?
Well, this was coming, obviously. All the, what is called the final status issues, they have been taken one after the other, starting with Jerusalem back 2 years ago when Trump came and said that he's going to recognize the Jerusalem as being the capital of Israel. Then it became withdrawing all the support to UNRWA, which was a blow to the refugees. And then there's followed, this past March by recognizing the Golan Heights as Israel's sovereignty over it. And today, obviously, with the
So you're not surprised?
I'm not surprised at all because they have been. There are four main reasons for this. One is that for elections reasons, he wants the evangelical vote who have been pushing to get Israel's sovereignty over the whole West Bank. Also the Zionist vote, and for elections also he wants the donors such as Sheldon Adelson, who's been financing his campaign to the tune of $100 million. And also you have, for ideological reasons, you have somebody like, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, as well as his Secretary of State and Vice President. All of them are evangelicals. All of them believe that Israel has sovereignty over it. And then you can also add to this the fact that he wants to help Netanyahu in his legal trouble.
He is already in legal trouble. He's
Yes.
indicted on charges of fraud, bribery, breach and trust. And I want to get back to Asa on that because Asa, Secretary Pompeo claimed that U.S. position of viewing settlements illegal did not advance peace in the region, and this complex political issue should be left to the Israelis and Palestinians to negotiate. So given the latest developments in the region, is there a ground for that?
Well, I think that this new move by the Trump administration is a sign, it's a signal to the Israelis that they will be allowed to perpetually occupy and annex millions of stateless Palestinians. Millions of people in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip have no basic human rights living under Israeli occupation, let alone a vote. They certainly don't have a vote in the regime that rules their lives, which is the Israeli occupation regime, which looks like is going to be going into a third election this year. And when we talk about settlements in the West Bank, there's a lot of platitudes and European Union leaders and, to a lesser extent, Democratic Party leaders in the US express toothless condemnations of this move by the Trump administration.
Yeah, but what kind of
there's
tools? But what kind of tools do these countries, especially the European ones, have at hand to prevent Israel from further violating international law?
Well, they've got an immense amount of tools, especially the Americans. Under Democratic Party administrations, they could have done an immense amount. I mean, we all know how the America funds Israel, subsidizes Israel to the tune of billions of dollars every year. The Obama administration, as one of its last acts, signed a 10-year agreement for an average of $3.8 billion a year, I believe it was, in military aid alone. And that's, on top of all the extra loans and political support and so on and so forth. So these kind of it's not a question of what tools there are really. There's a lack of political will amongst, especially every American and European country really supports Israel and its war crimes against Palestine.
Yes. So
it's a question of lack of political will.
Yeah. Tell me about the Palestinian side. I mean, we see the Palestinian cause has weakened so much that it can be used as a political tool and for the interest of one particular politician. So what could you tell us about the Palestinian side?
Well, the Palestinians are in a sorry state of affairs because of the division that's taking place today between Ramallah and Gaza. And you have a president who is extremely weak, who actually has absolutely no vision for the future of Palestine, who's been living in a fantasy world of his own, and therefore I don't expect much from him. I think what is happening today is the realization that we no longer have a two-state solution, and what we have today is a conflict within the historic state of Palestine by which the world eventually will reject an exclusivist state for one party over the other. And I think that is not a weakness for the Palestinians, that's actually a strength. Because we can no longer live in this fantasy that somehow the Palestinians will live on 20 or 21% of their historic land under occupation. That is no longer a viable option.
So Asa, actually, Arian, Sami just mentioned it, but the current leader, Mahmoud Abbas, has been sitting on the legendary leader, Yasser Arafat's chair for about 15 years now. So what is next for Palestinian politics, and are there any diplomatic alternatives for Palestinians from now on?
Well, in terms of the Palestinian Authority is now what, in my view, it has always been since it came about in the early 90s, which is a quisling entity to help reinforce the Israeli occupation. The vast amount of the biggest part of the budget for the Palestinian Authority goes not into healthcare or municipal services for the Palestinian population living under Israeli occupation, but for police and mukhabarat, secret police, various armed forces, for the use against the Palestinian population to prevent Palestinian resistance, whether it's armed resistance or non-violent resistance. The PA is there to protect Israel, essentially. The Palestinian Authority's so-called president, Mahmoud Abbas, has no popular legitimacy, has no political legitimacy. His term of office expired a long, long time ago. So, really, the PA is just there to prop up the Israeli occupation, in my view.
Yeah.
And in terms of what comes next, there is, I agree with Sami in a way. The Palestinians actually do have a great degree of strength in terms of popular political legitimacy and support around the world amongst Palestinian diaspora refugee communities and amongst the international solidarity campaigns, which have been working to boycott Israel on the international level, on the popular level, and have had a great degree of success and continue to go from strength to strength.
Yes, Sami, tell me about the current mood in Palestine. Although you said this decision is not a surprise to you because it was coming, but will this latest decision force Palestinians in a way to unite against their oppressors? Because we've been seeing that Netanyahu has been taking advantage of the a dividedness between the Palestinians, whereas Hamas or Al-Fatah. What is your take on that?
Well, we actually, unfortunately, we have two levels in Palestine. We have the level of the elites, which are represented by the Palestinian Authority and those who are in charge of it. They are also living in this fantasy world that somehow they're going to get a two-state solution, which is not happening. And we have the masses. The masses of people are actually have given up on this fantasy, on this two-state solution, long time ago. Mm-hmm. And they wish to find some kind of reconciliation between those people who are in charge in Ramallah, Fatah in particular, and those who are in Gaza, Hamas, and this hasn't been coming. So they are very disappointed in that. But I think we are beyond these movements. Now we are at the struggle of gaining the freedom in one state, basically. I think that's what people have.
Is there a hope at the end of the tunnel?
Of course. I mean, this tyranny and this oppression and this occupation cannot continue forever. I mean, the right in Israel and their supporters, whether in the United States or in Europe or elsewhere, they are hoping that somehow the Palestinians will give up and leave. That's not going to happen. So what are they going to do? I mean, in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, we're going to even have more Palestinians in the land than we have Jews. So what are you going to do? Are they going to just kill them? Are they going to deport them? That's not going to happen. So eventually they will have to gain their freedom, and then we will no longer have a Zionist state.
All right. I'm afraid we're out of time. Sami, thank you very much for joining me on set. And Asa, thank you for joining us from London. Appreciated your comments, gentlemen. It's known as the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI for short. Simply put, it is the modern incarnation of the ancient Silk Road, a trade route by land and sea that connected most of the known world at the time. As part of the BRI, a Chinese freight train has now started traveling uninterrupted from Xi'an all the way to Europe, and it uses Turkey as a transit point. Shamim Chowdhury explains what it means for Turkish businesses and how trade between Turkey and China can now be faster and cheaper.
This railway line has been hailed as the Iron Silk Road, a modern-day version of the ancient trade route that for more than 1,000 years linked China to the Middle East and Europe. It means Turkey can now receive Chinese goods in just 12 days. Before, it took around a month.
Safe and fast transportation is a key requirement when importing and exporting goods. Being in the right place at the right time with the right product is the golden rule of trade. This will save a lot of time and energy and will be more profitable.
The China Railway Express freight train is the first to connect China to Central Asia and Europe without any interruptions. It's made up of 42 container-loaded carriages. For now, the train will only carry Chinese goods from east to west. But analysts say it's just a matter of time before Turkey and other countries start using it to sell their own goods to China.
You cannot put limits to free trade in this. There's a cross-border trade, a very frequent cross-border trade. Cross-border capital is flowing within the country, so you cannot put limits. So I'm confident because of that. The nature of the international financial and trade system enable this.
The train is part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. It's an infrastructure and development project, and Turkey is an important part of it. The country is a transit hub linking Asia to Europe, making it strategically important to China. Ankara stands to benefit substantially from the $8 trillion Chinese Railway Express, and it fits well into Turkey's own infrastructure projects.
Turkey needs foreign direct investment. So by integrating in the projects like the freight train, like Marmaray project, Third Bridge, like they are all offered and integrated and incorporated in the Middle Corridor project, Turkey benefits from investment and infrastructure opportunities.
The train's 11,500-kilometer journey starts in the central Chinese city of Xi'an. It passes through Kazakhstan, the Caspian Seabed Tunnel, and onto Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Turkey. It goes through Ankara and Istanbul, then travels to Bulgaria, Serbia, Hungary, and Slovakia, before finally reaching Prague in the Czech Republic. To reach this station in Istanbul, the China Railway Express freight train must pass through the Marmaray Tunnel. That connects the Asian side of the city to the European side. It's the first freight train to take this route, and the saved journey time will save Turkey money in some of its trade dealings with Europe. The Chinese agree it's a mutually beneficial partnership.
Turkey is a bridge between Europe and Asia. It has a very important strategic position and its economy is growing very rapidly.
Goods traded along the Iron Silk Road are expected to reach an estimated 5 billion people in more than 60 countries. For Turkey and many of these nations, it heralds a new era in international trade. Shamim Chowdhury, Straight Talk.
And joining me now, Qihai Huang, who is a professor of entrepreneurship and management at UK's Keele Business School, and Sedat Aybar, who is the director of Istanbul Aydın University's China Research Center. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you here. So Chinese Railway Express has become the first freight train to pass 2 continents and 10 countries only in 18 days. And it's also the first freight train to have used Turkey's subsea tunnel, Marmara, which provided an important shortcut. Qihai, I want to start with you. Tell me, how significant is this train's history, and is it a game changer?
Well, apparently, as you have just mentioned, the Belt and Road Initiative is a grand initiative which aims to link many countries in Asia, Africa, and also Europe. Mm-hmm. So this is, of course, a significant milestone of the development itself, indicating the further development of the project. And the Belt and Road Initiative itself, as you know, has 6 different economic corridors. Yes. And Turkey, no doubt, is in a central position of the middle corridor of the development. So that's why, to me, yeah, of course, it is a very significant development. And
without Turkey, would it be possible?
Well, I wouldn't say without Turkey it is possible. No doubt, as I said, there are 6 different routes or corridors, and no doubt this is a most important part of the 6 corridors. That's why taking the geographical advantage of the country itself, it plays a very important role itself, and also, no doubt, it can benefit from this initiative.
That's what's in it for Turkey, Sedat?
A lot. This is like a dream come true, actually. It has been in the making for such a long time. Now the train has arrived in Turkey. It passed through Turkey, through the Bosphorus, and then into Europe. Of course, this is going to bring Turkey a very much needed upgrading of its infrastructure as far as transportation is concerned. Part of it is relating to railways, part of it to ports and airports. Now, this is an integrated project, and it provides Turkey with an opportunity to patch up its infrastructure gap. But not only this, it also brings Turkey some benefits that goes beyond economic sphere. It brings benefits as far as geopolitics is concerned, and it brings Turkey benefits to improve its particularly renewable energy side of its economy. So therefore, the benefits that Turkey is going to generate from this arrival of this train is multi-layered. It is a multi-dimension, and part of it is relating to infrastructure, but partly it is relating to upgrading Turkey's productive capacity. And that production is involving energy.
Yeah, because we know some of Turkey's Western friends deny Turkey this technological transfers. So can Turkey obtain this through its relations with China? And also, when we take a look at the trade volume between Turkey and China, it's not in favor of Turkey. So will this be fixed with this project, or at least we can attain some kind of more balanced trade?
Well, personally, I believe so. As you mentioned, the initiative itself aims to increase connectivity, but also cooperation. As you said, at the moment, probably the trade surplus is towards the Chinese side. But again, with the further development and also with further development of the route, and including the countries and areas, including the areas within Turkey, no doubt there are more opportunities for instance, Turkey to export more products. Interestingly, this morning I came across a gentleman who told me his son works in China, helping the Turkish company exporting products to China, attend the second international import expo. So that's why we have many different products, and of course the economies between the two countries can complement each other.
Is there a danger of another spillover of cheap Chinese products dominating Turkey, which we've experienced during the 1990s and in the beginning of the 2000s?
Personally, I don't believe so. Firstly, of course, we know with the development of the Chinese economy itself, the so-called upgrading its production. So, and of course, more and more Chinese companies.
More cheap products.
Well, I wouldn't say no more cheap, but again, still comparatively cheaper than many Western countries.
So we see some European countries are quite prudent in joining this Belt and Road Initiative, saying that it might divide the European Union, which is already divided. But if it all goes well, could we expect to see goods traveling not only from east to west, but from now on west to east? What do you
Absolutely.
make of it?
I mean, this is a two-way street. There isn't one-way street that comes goods coming from China into Europe and it's flooding European market, but it's also a two-way street. Goods from Western Europe goes back to China, and that is actually a integration of Pacific with Atlantic. That is geographical space brought together with this BRI in the sense that goods and services can be exchanged through this. So that initiative provides such an opportunity both ways. But just to add on to this, whether Turkish market will be flooded with cheap goods, but Turkey is providing as a logistical hub to the BRI, especially after this arrival of the train and that railway route opened up. Now, Turkey is providing logistical hub to the Chinese goods, not only through railways, but also through airports and ports, the harbors. And these are also in the process of being upgraded and renewed. So, yes, there is a danger of, there is always a danger of Turkish market being flooded with the cheap Chinese goods, but Turkey needs to come up with a trade strategy to prevent this, or rather to create a win-win situation, mutually beneficial situation.
That's what China says, yes.
For the trade.
Yes.
Therefore, it's onerous on us to come up with a strategic trade
That's
policy.
on Turkey's part. But on China's part, there is this Western narrative that China uses this project as a form of coercive debt trap diplomacy for the countries who join BRR. Do you agree in that?
No, to me, I totally disagree with this. I don't know what's the right word, accusation or what. If you look at the assumption, firstly, the reality. So including, of course, two key examples have been used, Sri Lanka and also Kenya.
Yes.
But again, I have just done check. For instance, in the case of Sri Lanka, actually not debt owned China, instead owned to Western countries. Instead, they have to pay back. Secondly, if you check I found the first African check, the reality is, of course, firstly, Kenya didn't own China so much. It's only 20%. Still, of course, many Western countries, loan to Kenya. And the other point, of course, this is basically assumption to me, interestingly, only Chinese devils or evils who are clever, or Western leaders, Western people are stupid. If you have a trap for me, I go ahead. No doubt, because we need to work together. And also, that's interesting, when I did my project in Kenya, people say, because we need investment for infrastructure.
Because if these investments are not materialized, project will be doomed, and so China will be in serious problem. Last question, Sedat. Where do you see Turkey in the short future within this project, of course?
I think Turkey is at the heart of this project. I mean, Turkey is provided that Turkey has a geography like this. It's strategically important. Turkey is very much at the heart of this, an important partner of the project itself, and can provide a lot of contribution to the project itself. In the meantime, benefiting from the progress of the project.
All right, gentlemen, we're out of time, unfortunately. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all for this edition of Straight Talk with me, Ayşe Süberker. If you've got any comments, do share them with us on Twitter with the hashtag Straight Talk. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, take care and goodbye.